So you want to get into gardening, but now you look at all the different seeds and you're confused. That's what we're going to talk about today, is where to start in gardening. So let's get started. So those that are here for the first time, I'm Bekka, and I'm here to empower you with knowledge of a natural health lifestyle. And of course, gardening is a big portion of that if you so choose. And like I said, whenever you get into gardening and you start going to look at seeds, where do you even start? So today I am going to give you my opinion on what plants to plant when you are new to gardening to make it beneficial and most productive for you and your family. So the first types of seeds that I'm going to talk about is your run-of-the-mill garden seeds or your food type seeds, and what I would recommend on planting according to production and ease of growing and my experience here in South Texas. So it may be different in your area, but I am giving you my experience here in my location. So the number one that I would recommend that you look at planting is some sort of squash. And the reason is it grows huge. You know, it's a huge growing vine, and it can produce multiple vegetables and feed you throughout the winter. And some of the squashes that I have is, of course, spaghetti squash, which would be a great one for multiple different types of meals throughout the winter. And spaghetti squash is one of those hard skin squashes that can be stored in the right location without refrigeration. So it would be great for your larder, or if you are one of those that is lucky enough to have like a cold storage, something along those lines, like a cellar. Squash is an excellent plant to have and grow an abundance of, and have fresh vegetables throughout the winter. And another type of squash that I grow all the time is butternut squash, and this is what butternut squash looks like. So in case you don't know the name versus the squash itself. So that is another one. Zucchini, I grow zucchini quite a bit. And then also crooked neck squash, that one right there. I mix zucchini and crooked neck quite a bit, especially in the summertime when I'm getting lots of it. I will just chop them up. I will saute them, throw in maybe some potato, some tomato, that would be a great one to throw in it, and whatever meat that you want if you're looking for meat. And it makes a great saute, and it's really quick to create on one of those long days. So that would be the first group of plantings that I would recommend is squash. Another group of plantings, and again, it's good for storing in the right type of environment. You can also cut them up and freeze them. You can dry, dehydrate them, and you can also can it, and that is carrots. And carrots are fairly easy to grow. Now, if you're new, I would recommend the miniature carrots, something like Nanette. That might be a good particular carrot to grow. That's another one. But carrots, Emperor carrots, that is a conventionally grown carrot. I got these from the feed store, but if you're just starting out or having a hard time finding seeds, then conventional might be the way to go for you at this point in time. If you are interested into diving in more in that conversation, go check out my last video on looking through my seed box, and I give more insight on that information about conventional grown versus heirloom and open pollinators. But carrots is another variety or another type of plant that might be beneficial for you to plant in a new beginning garden. Another type of plant that I definitely recommend for you to throw in to your new garden is some sort of bean, and I would almost recommend a pole bean versus a bush bean, but whatever you decide, green beans are a great bean to plant because they are easy to grow, they're prolific, and they're easy to store. Whether you put them in the freezer, you can dehydrate them if you want, but my favorite way is to can them and have it already ready for quick meals whenever you are whenever you're busy and can't make that quick meal fresh. You can always make it with your own canned food. So green beans would be a great garden plant to look at whenever you're starting your new garden. Another plant that I would recommend is some sort of pepper. And I toyed with this on what type of pepper. Of course, there's bell pepper, which can be cut up and put in anything that you're cooking. So that is a great option. But I would actually recommend something a little warmer, like a cayenne, because those actually have medicinal value to it. So you're getting a 2-for-1. But whatever type of pepper, if you're new to gardening, I would kind of stay away from the ghost peppers, the habaneros, things like that. You don't really need something that hot, and if you are restricted in garden space or knowledge on growing, your bell peppers and your cayennes are going to be the better bet. Even a jalapeno would be better than a ghost pepper or something along those lines. But peppers would be another valuable plant to have in your new garden. Tomatoes. Now, going through my seed box, I realized that I am rather short in tomato varieties, but my tomato of choice is the Roma tomato because it is an in-between tomato. It's not a cherry tomato, but it's not a big beefsteak where it takes forever and a day to grow, and the likely of me actually getting it without it being split is highly unlikely. But the Roma tomatoes, they are just the right size to where they can be cut up and put into a salad. They can be stewed into your soups and stews. They can be canned very well. They're easy to puree. So I like using the medium-sized tomatoes because they grow pretty fast and easy to manage. So tomatoes would be a good plant to have in your new garden. Onions I include because they are such a versatile plant, and they're actually rather easy to grow when they are a bunching onion, especially. Not to say that the bigger onions, the big round like yellow onions and things like that, they're not necessarily hard to grow. They just take a longer time to grow. And actually my favorite onion of today is the Egyptian walking onion because it multiplies itself, and then you can just pick whatever you're wanting out of it whenever you're wanting to eat it. So it's not something that you have to harvest everything all at once, especially in my location, and then you can just let it grow and grab what you need whenever you need it. But onion, it is good for flavoring food, and it's a great medicinal herb to have, or medicinal plant to have around. So that would be another plant that I would recommend in a beginner garden. And then some other plants that are kind of on the list, if you have room, is cucumbers. And I say because Cucumbers are very prolific, yes. They are a great grower, yes. If you have small children, have them plant 1 or 2 cucumbers, but that's really all a family needs, because cucumbers, the best way of preserving them is like pickling them, and you might get tired of pickled cucumbers or have way too many jars, though this would be a good plant to grow, and you would have plenty to pass around to friends and family. So that's kind of why I have it on the top of my list. But cucumbers might be something that you think about putting in your garden. It's best grown like by a fence. So if your garden is close to a fence line, let it grow up the fence, or have the ability to put it on a trellis or fence or something along those lines. So cucumbers is on that list. Another one to try, and I picked this out, and it's kind of on that yes or no type list. A lot of people don't like the taste of turnips, but turnips is one that I would put on my list because they're actually easier and quicker to grow than potatoes, and they taste a lot like potatoes. For many years, I would actually cut up the turnips and put them in with potatoes when I'm cooking a meal, and the family didn't notice. It took a couple of years before I got caught with me chopping it up, and the kids noticed that I was putting turnips in the potato meals. So that would be a good one. And turnip greens, that is another meal in itself that can be used. Now another one would be beans, like as in bush beans, or like red beans, or your pinto beans, things like that. And the reason I say is because they are readily available at all the grocery stores, and they're fairly cheap. But it would be something that in an emergency situation, it doesn't take long to throw a couple of beans, whether it comes from the store bag. You can throw those in the ground, and in a relatively short period of time, you are starting to produce meals. So that might be a viable option depending on the space. Now, ones that I wouldn't necessarily recommend right off the bat is corn. Though corn does produce a good amount of food, but not per stalk, and you need a large area to produce your corn. So corn would be one that I would put on the maybe next time type list. Other ones that I would and I normally don't even mess with are the lettuces and spinach and kale. And the reason is at least in my area, there are a lot of greens that grow, and I grow naturally, and I just wildcraft them. If they start growing in my garden, I just cultivate them just like any other plant in the garden. I will leave it there, let it grow, and one of those is yellow dock, or also called curly dock. That is normally my spinach substitute. And another one that is a great spinach substitute that I plant every year is I like sweet potatoes. So I plant sweet potatoes, and then I harvest the leaves off the sweet potatoes, and that is a spinach substitute as well. So that is my list of seeds that going through my seed box that are great starter plants for new gardeners. I hope this list gives you a word of encouragement to get you out there and start growing of your own. If there's something that I missed that you think should be on my beginners list, leave it in the comments section. Or if there's something that you had a question about, leave that there as well. I'll address it accordingly. I will talk with you again soon, and until then, get healthy, be happy, and herbal on. Bye.